Welcome back, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags, to the super, not funny show reviews. I am Jen Thépuppét, your resident fabricant and comment extraordinaire on all things pop culture. And today we're going to be reviewing the 9th episode of Clarice, coming to you from CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. So, was it good? Was it bad? And should you be watching? Stick around because I have opinions. Clarice, episode 9, entitled Silence is Purgatory. And this follows on after the previous episode, wherein the VICAP team has decided to surreptitiously, under the nose of the rest of the FBI, investigate Joe Hudlin. And he, of course, is the lawyer, and that is kind of, he's the fixer that's covering up all these murders and whatever. And also, he bitch slapped the shit out of Clarice back like 4 or 5 episodes ago. And he's implicated in murders and all that good stuff. But he's kind of untouchable right now. And he's got Director Krindler kind of got his balls in a vice regarding his kids. But that doesn't keep the VICAP team down. And they decide to, split up some of the responsibilities, go, do some detective work, do some FBI agent work, lean on some confidential informants. In the case of Murray, who, spoiler alert, he has a confidential informant and leans all the way to hell on her until she ends up apparently dead later on in the episode. This, of course, is keeping in the fact that anyone who's trying to tell on this pharmaceutical company and the Reprisol drug that apparently causes birth defects, etc., it apparently is a big earner, but also has some pretty bad side effects. That's why Joe Hudlin's there, to fix everything. That's why, people have died, to keep all the profits going. But we see Murray doing his thing as an FBI agent. We see Esquivel and Clarice go out to try to track down one person whose name is associated with anything, and that is a woman named Julia, who is an accountant with Alaster Pharmaceuticals, who is they are the creators and manufacturers of Reprisol. Obviously, the people who are trying to keep all this, all these bad side effects on the DL, so much so they want to kill people. We also find at the same time, Ardelia has gone to the Black Coalition and has decided that there's too much, there's been too much racial discrimination. Hers is just the latest case, and they have decided that they're going to have to go ahead and, sue the FBI the same way that Latino agents before had sued the company or sued the FBI. And even though they know that there's likely repercussions and maybe many of them are going to get fired. That said, when Ardelia does go to talk to the lawyer that's likely to represent them, when she presents her situation, he makes it clear that he will take the case, but only if the case is made about the way Clarice Starling has been treated as opposed to Ardelia, because they both graduated at the same time. They both were, near the top of their class, etc. And one has had a meteoric rise, and the other one has broken a big case and gotten her all her research and all her research money to fund DNA testing has been taken away from her and given to some white guy, some white agent, and she's been pushed aside. And so it becomes up to her to decide whether the welfare of the many black agents who have been, unfairly treated and harassed and etc. throughout the years, whose cases she wants to highlight, whether she should put them over her friendship with Clarice. And in this very busy episode, we also have Director Krindler, who is deciding to continue to string along Joe Hudlin, and at the same time jumps off the wagon, drinks some alcohol in order to ingratiate himself with the very crooked lawyer, and at the same time get some information and pass it along. It's interesting that this sort of highlights his relationship, his long-running friendship with Murray, and the fact that he decides to confide in Murray about falling off the wagon, and Murray gives him some very tough but straight shooting advice about whether or not he was looking for a reason to drink, or if he had no other alternative or no other way to actually ingratiate himself. It's all very interesting work. At the same time, we have, circling back around, we have the accountant Julia. And Julia, I would note, she's explicitly a character who's meant to address a pretty long-running criticism of the Silence of the Lambs, the book and the movie, and the fact that much was made about the fact that Buffalo Bill was possibly a trans person, possibly a trans woman, or wanted to be a trans, or some kind of was somehow motivated by his or their sexual identity, their gender identity, all that sort of thing, and it was much was made about it being, in the words of Julia, transsexual mania or whatever, and in doing so, and characterizing this in the media and sensationalizing it, really making the lives of trans people very difficult and much harder and much less safe to be out. In other words, as she says, that having to be silenced, and in this case, silence being purgatory, wherein you're not damned, you're not divine, and it's again explicitly meant to sort of, I don't want to say rehabilitate, but really to address that ongoing criticism of this material, of the source material, and how it didn't really do any service to a very marginalized group of people. At the same time, Julia, who I'm assuming is a trans woman, is also in a relationship with a woman who's has cancer, so she has to balance doing what's right, in this case trying to get justice for 3 murdered women, and doing what's easy, which is to stay in a good job that will provide healthcare insurance, etc., for a sick loved one. And at the end, she decides to do what's right within the bounds of her NDA that keeps her from actually saying anything, but giving Clarice some accounting information that will possibly help them root out what's going on. At the same time, Clarice she's also working a confidential informant. In this case, the son of the CEO of Alastor Pharmaceuticals, who did not know his father until he was 14 and has a lot of daddy issues and everything, but could prove to be an important source of information as they attempt to take down this conspiracy. And when it all circles back around, we still have Ardelia having to come and be straight up with her friend about the fact that she's going to sue and that Clarice is going to be at the center. And what's really great about this is that Clarice really sort of understands. She's been sort of told twice in this episode, and she says that she's been told that she is unintentionally hurting people. She's hurting people and hurting their lives through her either action or lack of, her inaction in some case, in the case of Buffalo Bill, to not actively counter the narrative that the transsexual nature of Buffalo Bill was at the root cause of his psychopathy, and that was something that was wrong of her to do by not speaking up. And of course, she had her reasons, but the fact is that harm was done. And in the case of Ardelia, not that she did anything purposely, but the fact that she was able to, really rise high, despite the fact that, there was nothing really distinguishing her anymore from Ardelia than the fact that, she's a white woman. And the fact that she recognizes that this isn't about a personal vendetta or anything, that Ardelia and she are still friends, and that Ardelia is going to be making her life difficult as a result of naming her in the lawsuit, and that she accepts it because she knows in her heart that the right thing to do is to make things better in the bureau rather than taking it personally that her friend would have to do so. All in all, not an episode full of action. No action really in this episode, but a whole lot of character movement. Yes, this is a very much a message episode in some ways, in particular dealing with the trans issue. Was it done? Was it done a little heavy-handed? Sure. There's a big message in there, but the fact is that in the first place, the anti-trans message was very heavy-handed in the source material. So it's a little odd to be complaining about the heavy-handedness here when the original was so egregious in that respect. In other ways, it was really fun to see the way that the characters are interacting. The fact that, in the course of the episode, Murray's all about results, so much so that, again, pushing on his confidential informant gets her killed by an apparent suicide, but it's pretty clear it's not a suicide. And he encourages Clarice to do the same with the accountant, Julia. And the way she stands firm and refuses to do so just because, just to get a win, it kind of speaks to her character. There's a lot of forward movement here. We hear more about Esquivel and his difficulty with his girlfriend and not wanting to tell about being a sniper. And, we see Krendler, he's kind of struggling with the fact that alcohol is now back in his life, but also he wants to get this guy, Joe Hudlin. It's just, there's a whole lot of pieces moving in this particular episode, and it's definitely a setup episode. This is not one of those where the end game, we're nearing the end game. It's definitely, or if we are nearing the end game, it's right 1 or 2 episodes beforehand. So we got to get all the pieces into place. And as that goes, as far as the character development, as far as the plot development, as far as, seeing Catherine, who was, of course, she was the woman down the well that she's been kind of shut in. She goes out and she meets with her former fiance, and it's a very tense and tentative kind of meeting in which, she at the end of it is very upset because he's trying to move on, and he asks her forgiveness just so he can move on and be with somebody else. And she pretty much kind of, emasculates him, which I found very interesting. I found it quite interesting that in one part of the episode, there's this whole talk about trans women and trans people and all, something about gender, about gender identity, etc. There's all of this stuff that's very affirming. And then you have, at the end of the episode, another end of the episode, a woman basically telling a man that he's not really a man because he doesn't fit up to what she defines a man as. That's I find it just a bit hypocritical that you can have someone else say, I'm going to define, who my gender, and we talk about gender spectrum, etc. And yet on the other side of it, and I understand this is a period piece in the 90s, but to say this man is not a real man because he doesn't fit whatever, stereotypical idea about what a real man is. It's very strange coming from the very same writers. And I would like that addressed, and probably won't be. It probably won't be that this idea of masculinity must be set, but the gender identity of trans people or women or whatever, maybe it's not, it doesn't have to be so set. I'm not sure that's what they were going for, but it shouted out to me as a little bit hypocritical. All in all, though, really like this episode. I understand that it's a little slow, so it may not be for everybody, but I really enjoy all the character development and all the plot development. Can't wait to see where it goes next episode. So anyway, what did you guys think about this episode, and what did you think about my review? Why don't you get down in the comments and let me know what you're thinking. Of course, you can always hit me up, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com or at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter. We can get there and chop it up, talk about Clarice, and speculate, see where this is all going. I'm certain within the next couple episodes, 2 or 3 episodes, we are bringing this whole train to the station for the season. So, really looking forward to that. Also, hey, are you a member of the Super Not Funny Show? What? You're not? What are you doing? Get down there, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell. It'll let you know when we drop new content, and we're doing that every week. We're doing that every week. We're dropping new reviews, new reactions, anything else that floats our pop culture boat, like the Super Not Funny Show Supercast, wherein I and my friend Lottie, we talk about superheroes and all media, comics, video games, movies, TV shows, all that fun stuff. So get down there and you can check all that out. All right, all you Fabricants and Fleshbags, thanks once again for joining us on the Super Not Funny Show reviews. Come back next week as we review the very next episode of Clarice. Until then, I have been Jen Thépuppét, your resident fabricant and comment extraordinaire on all things pop culture. And I'll see you guys on the other side of the thread. Peace.